Hey, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Witching Hour podcast. I am your host, as always, John Royslin. With me tonight, new friend, special friend, and I don't mean that in a helmet kind of a way, Mr. Mitch Rafter, coming out from Texas,
Yes.
from Gorenoir magazine. Mitch,
What
welcome to the Witching Hour.
you said it correct too, Gorenoir. You didn't even have any primers. I didn't even look at that. It's amazing.
I passed a couple grades in school, not many of them, but just enough to figure that
Just
one
a
out.
few.
How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm above ground. I'm on this side of the dirt, so I guess
Nice.
most people will say that's a good thing.
We're part of the undead, I guess
Un
you could say.
Yeah, the undead. Yeah, we'll give it that much. Hey, so going by your background, obviously you are definitely pushing the gore. So this is your baby. This is your project,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. Yeah. So it's my baby. It started off as a photography group. So that was kind of the reason behind the Gore Noir. It used to be black and white photos with red blood, kind of like Sin City-ish.
Nice.
So Gore Noir made a lot more sense when it was that, but I had already made it. I liked the name. So I was like, I'm just going to turn it into a magazine that, shows off the photography and all that kind of stuff. So,
Hmm.
yep. And 13 years for the magazine alone this year.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Congratulations, man. That's
thank you.
that's quite a feat. And is this solely you? Do you have a staff?
So I wear a lot of hats,
Hmm.
but I do have friends that have like submitted in the past and things like that. But as far as like social media, putting the magazine together itself and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I learned how to do InDesign, Adobe InDesign by creating the magazine. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's been a ride.
Wow. And is this your, how can I put this politely, correctly? Is this your bread and butter? Is this your 9 to 5? How about that?
So I've stopped my job twice to do the magazine full time.
Wow.
Both times were not a good time to do that.
They never are.
They never are. So it was just like a couple of years ago when the pandemic hit us.
Right.
So I was like, oh, good. Yeah, this is a great time when conventions are no longer
Right.
great. And then, yeah, before it was just like not a great year as well. Just like, okay, it's not my bread and butter. I would love for it to become that.
Mhm.
But when you do wear a lot of hats, some of the hats fit better than others. Me, I'm really good at putting stuff together, having the ideas, but then like really like pushing it hard.
Mhm.
As a creative person, sometimes that's a hard hat to wear unless you're like that outgoing, like, hey, look at all this cool stuff. But it's like at the same time, it's like it's a part of you. So it's hard to like be like, yes, this is amazing. It's so good.
Right.
Which a lot of people tell me that, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, it's an extension of yourself. It's hard to kind of, for me, I like it's hard for me to do that. So
So what made you want to transition from doing photography to full blown? I mean, writing is, I mean, that. So I was at one time, I ran a website, a horror
okay.
website,
Hmm.
and I openly admitted I had no right considering myself a writer.
Uh-huh.
I could narrate and dictate and come up with all these beautiful sentences, but don't ask me to spell the difference between there, and there.
Oh.
So writing was not my forte, see what I'm saying?
Forte.
My
Yeah.
forte. I mean, that's a lot of work. And especially if you're trying to keep up with social media, you
Uh-huh.
got to be on the jump at all hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember the middle of the night. I'm asleep. My wife is awake. She's still watching TV, and
Uh-huh.
she wakes me up. She's like, um, um, Gunnar Hansen just died.
Oh, rest in peace. Yeah.
Middle of the night, I'm out here typing because if you don't do it, then a million other people are going to do it, and they're going to get the numbers.
So I I'm kind of I wouldn't say it foresaw that. I don't think there was any of that, but I there's a lot to unpack in what you said. So my ADHD brain's like this, that. So I don't really do anything that's news. It's not a news magazine.
Okay.
So it was started as kind of a way to be covering the things that Fangoria doesn't cover, Remorgue only touches on, and things like that. It's more of a horror culture magazine with a lot of like nostalgia and kind of retro. Like that's a lot of what it is. So it was basically it's horror artists primary. So shining a spotlight on horror artists that need that spotlight shown on them because they don't have it any other way.
So time necessarily is not of the essence, because
No.
you're kind of picking and choosing what you want to be
Exactly.
able to glamorize what it is in that you want to discuss.
Exactly. So it's me talking to a person about their work, how they get into photography, or how did they get into art, modeling, tattoos, like all that kind of, bands, like horror bands.
Sure.
Those kind of things where it's not like something like has to be right away. This is a band that you could pick up their album in a couple months, that kind of thing. It's not, it's like picking up an old copy of Fangoria where it's like covering like Evil Dead 2.
Right.
Like you could pick that up nowadays and it's like from, the 90s or whatever. So there's nothing, timely about that portion of it. And that's kind of what I do. I have kind of like the stepping stone, kind of the entry point, the draw being some of those movies nowadays. Like I have like a Nightmare on Elm Street issue. I have a Texas Chainsaw issue. We brought up Gunnar Hansen. He wasn't in the magazine because this was after, but that kind of thing where it's like, I love this movie. And then you pick it up and now you're learning about all these artists, that do Nightmare on Elm Street art. And that's kind of the entry point into like teaching you about your new favorite artist, basically.
Bringing back and exploiting and maybe taking the time to actually explain what it was at that one time.
Exactly.
In present day. I love that.
Yeah.
I
So with
absolutely
like
love that.
Nightmare on Elm Street had the artists that did do I have it here? So it's probably going to mess it up. It is.
You can see a little bit.
Yeah. So Nightmare on Elm Street, like the artist who did the original poster, like that's what drew you into the VHS and for when it came to me. Like You're like, hey, look at this really cool movie. You know nothing about it other than that cover art.
Sure.
And Matthew Peak is the name of the artist who did that, and he did the first four posters, and I didn't even know what his name was.
Right.
Like, and I'm just like, this guy does amazing artwork. That's all I know. Like, let's learn more about him. The guy who did your favorite poster that you've never heard the name of. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's that kind of thing where it's like the unsung heroes, the people who created that iconic work that never got that shine, that spotlight shine on them even back then.
And you'll never forget that picture. I mean,
Exactly.
I grew up, that movie was out, I think, I'm going to show my age on this one. I want to say 7th grade, maybe 8th. And dude, I mean, I can remember that picture just as clear as it was yesterday.
Yep. Exactly.
That's amazing. I love that. So your magazine in a way is almost kind of like you and I sitting back and forth and just talking about, pick a movie and we're just going to talk about all points of it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Talking about a lot of those people that would not have got that spotlight by Fangoria or some of the others. Like I love Fangoria. I wouldn't have made the magazine if I never liked that magazine. I started off like as a comic collector. And I was like, when I was younger, like making my own like comics, I'd draw them out and like make a fake cover for it and all that kind of stuff. So that's what kind of got me into it. And then like my love of horror and like doing the photography group, I'm like, I'm just going to do my own magazine. Might as well do it. Like, so taught myself everything. That's kind of how I've been, is like, do it yourself.
So how often do you release each of your issues?
So I shoot for every 4 months, every 3 months. It's really like lately, the cost of printing has gone up.
Right.
And the amount of money that people have to put towards these kind of things has been dwindling. So it really is based on, how much money I'm able to bring in. Now it's like Kickstarters, if those work out. So it is every like 4 months. Sometimes it could be every year. But what I've found is because of those costs, I found ways to kind of get around those and still be able to put out magazines. I started doing VHS sized magazines because I actually did like a 5x7 magazine I called the toilet issue. It was Ghoulies. So it was like the toilet glue on front. And on the back, I'm not sure if you've heard of Street Trash.
Oh, yeah.
So Street Trash, when he's melting into the toilet, I'm like, I love Street Trash. I love Ghoulies. So it's like one cover was Street Trash, one covered Ghoulies. I called it the toilet issue.
I
you
love
put
it
on the back of your toilet seat because it's a 5x7 little small one. And I was like, this is really cool. And it's almost the size of a VHS tape. Why don't I make VHS tape size magazines? So I have magazines that you can actually fit inside of a VHS clamshell.
Okay.
And those ones are cheaper to put out, and I could do smaller print runs. I don't have to do a ton of them to be able to get like a decent price on them. So I started doing those to kind of, be able to put out magazines without having to put out thousands of dollars to put, print run.
So do you also offer an online issue?
So I do digital, but it's been a while since I've done a digital issue. My main thing is like tactile, actual physical media. It's best consumed while it's in your hands. Somebody like had a quote, but I totally forgot what the quote was as far as like having like a physical tactile. But like I've done like scratch and sniff issues. I've done coffin shaped magazines before.
Oh, wow.
I've done 3D. What else have I done? Oh, I did like a blood-filled cover. So just stuff like that where it's like, I'm never going to be a Fangoria, so like I can't compete with that. So I'm going to be an interesting magazine that can create like small niche things that they probably won't do because they don't have the creativity or the time to.
So how now I know that Gorenoir also does vend at area horror conventions.
Yes.
How is the reception? People, if somebody walks up that doesn't already know you, isn't big in the horror community, walks up and says, "Gore, no ear." What do you? How is the reception by the time they get done when they leave that table?
You sound like a lot of them. Yes. They're looking up at the banner that says across it like exactly what's in it. So what is this about?
Right.
Like, oh well, I just go right into it. But honestly, like that's been my bread and butter as far as like being able to get out there and talk to people, and people love the magazine. Like I choose the covers very specific to be eye-catching. So like, a lot of it is like portraits of the different the different people, like, Freddie and all that kind of stuff. So it like draws your eye in. And I usually have a lot of like my merch, my table is usually covered. I'm like a touring band that has a magazine problem kind of deal. So I have buttons, I have patches, I have like wristbands and hats and shirts and like the whole 9 yards. So there's always something for somebody to get. But everybody loves the magazine, and that's I took this year off from vending, and it's been kind of sad. It's like all the FOMO, you're watching everybody at the conventions, and I'm just like, man, I miss that. And it's like energy too.
Right.
Whenever you have somebody like, oh, this is really cool, I've never heard of this before, like that's the energy that like keeps me putting it out. So
that's the inspiration, when somebody comments on an episode that I do, whether they liked it or not, that's the inspiration, and I'm sure that's the same feedback that you get with that energy.
Yes.
So how far is your range? I mean, how far have you gone to travel to vend?
So the farthest I've gone east, because I'm originally from San Francisco, so I'm a West Coast kind of guy, even though I'm living in Texas.
Right.
So the farthest I've gone, I think, is like Indiana. I've done like Horror Hound.
Nice.
Um, I've done, Louisiana. It's kind of like stopped at just a little bit past the Mississippi.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't done East Coast yet as far as like vending, but I definitely want to. It's just really cost prohibitive.
Sure.
When you have a magazine, like I do really well at the bigger conventions, like Texas Frightmare has been really good for me, but it's like closer and I don't spend a lot of money.
Right.
If you have to include like flight into things or like, hotels and that kind of stuff, it gets up there. When you're selling a magazine that you're not making a ton of money on to begin with, it can kind of, you can break even a lot.
And how much, if I may, how much
Yeah.
does on average an issue cost?
As far as like how much it costs. Well, right now,
Or if I were to come up to your table,
I purchased one. So it's
purchase.
always been $10 for the whole 13 years.
Okay.
It's never changed from $10, which most people are like, why are you still charging $10? You should be charging more than that. I'm just like, $10 is a good amount. Like somebody's
Sure.
going to have $10.
Right.
And I'd rather charge that $10 and have somebody take it home. And but yeah, $10. It might be going up to 13 soon. 13 is a good number, and it just allows me to have that a little more wiggle room to be able to put out issues in the future. But the VHS size magazines, those will be all $10. They're all limited edition, so that's kind of like only 1,000 made, so $10 for that for a collector's item. The bigger issues, they go up to 2,000 or 3,000 copies a piece.
And have you sold out of any certain issue?
All of the issues are sold out up until
Wow.
number 11.
Man, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah. So, and then some of the other ones I do like smaller print runs, like the coffin shaped and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So those ones sell out really quickly because there's not, I don't print a ton of them.
Right.
But yeah, I have, I think four different of the bigger issues like in circulation right now. And then I have 12 of the VHS issues that are kind of nearing being sold out. So
Wow. Damn,
yeah.
that's awesome. That's great. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
So now you also have watching you on social media, you have obviously been promoting events and so forth.
Yes.
Now you have something coming up. Actually, I'm going to keep it with Gore for a second here.
Yes.
Now, because you mentioned Kickstarter.
Uh-huh.
Now, there's something coming up on the 13th that starts
Yes.
for you with Kickstarter, and I'm going to let you dump that one out.
Thank you for the intro.
Of course.
So the next issue is actually going to be Terrifier. So I did a VHS size of the Terrifier. So I'd interviewed David, who plays Art, a while back, and put out a little mini VHS issue. And everybody, when they got it, was like, do you have a big one of this? Do you have a big one of this? Do you have a big one? I'm like, oh no, I just did the small one. Sorry. They're like, what about a big size? And it was like, okay. Like apparently people want a larger size Terrifier. So I hit up David. Fire. He said that he's cool with doing a revitalization of his interview that he did before. So I'm going to include some of that and then some of the new stuff. I've got Elliot from part 2. I commissioned a bunch of artists for covers. So like I said, I'm a comic collector. So I do comic versions of the covers. I like to do alternate covers of things, obviously being a comic collector.
Right.
So we have like it's an homage to Wolverine #1, where he's like doing like the come here thing, but instead it's Art the Clown, yeah, it's gonna be rad. I'm pushing it like heck. One of the things that, like I said, it's hard sometimes to pitch your own stuff, but when I changed my mentality within the last couple months, I'm just like, I need to push this stuff because I'm not pushing me, I'm pushing these artists.
Right.
I owe it to these artists to be able to, shine a spotlight on them to the best of my ability. It's not just me, it's somebody else. So
right.
Like, why not promote it? Because that's going to help them out in the end.
Of course.
So, with that mentality, I've been pushing this Kickstarter really, really hard, having people like follow beforehand, so I get a lot of initial push into it, and hoping for it to do really well.
And that, again, boys and girls, will go live. The Kickstarter for the Terrifier tribute on September 12th.
September 13th, Friday
September
the 13th. There's a
Friday
lot of
13th.
stuff happening on Friday the 13th. I'm like, yes, this will be a good idea. And everybody else is like, yeah, September 13th. And I'm like, cool. I guess we're all just going live on September 13th. But the one that matters the most is the Terrifier. So make sure you can actually go to gorenoir.com and it'll link you to the Terrifier Kickstarter and go hit follow. We're getting close to 100 follows already, so that's pretty good.
Nice. Very, very nice. One last project of yours I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Fang Bangers Ball. Say that 5 times fast, boys and girls.
Fang Bangers Ball. So I was a child of the 80s, so Headbangers Ball was, MTV. We were glued to all that kind of stuff. And like I said, a lot of what I do is kind of horror culture. So I also do a festival called Nosferatu Festival.
Yes, I love that name. Thank you for keeping it going.
Which it was about to be the 100-year anniversary, so I started doing it a couple of years before the 100-year anniversary, just so I can get my foot in the door with that. And we're thinking of different like segments that we could do. So I was like, why don't we do like a Fang Bangers Ball, have it like Nosferatu Festival associated, and be on what I'm going to be calling Gorenoir TV, which will be segments. So the Fang Bangers Ball will be the music portion. So it'll be friends of ours interviewing bands that are friends of ours, just for like a fun, vampy, have some of their music playing in the background, that kind of stuff. But yeah, on the 15th, it's going to be at Kick Butt in Austin, Texas. We're doing the Fang Bangers Ball filming for a segment, and then we're doing what I call Goth Ones, which is like Hot Ones, but for goth people. So it's going to be 6 bat wings, 6 sauces, and 6 questions. So it happens to be 666.
I fucking love it.
It'll be my goth friends, and we'll be interviewing them about their gothy life. 6 questions for them, and that'll be another segment for Gorenoir TV, which will all be ending up on YouTube, and it's going to be all the kind of little segment ideas that I have there. Most of them are kind of spin-offs on other things. I have one called Blood, Booze, Boobs, which is kind of original. So it's models and things like that will be creating blood, and they'll get bloody for a photo shoot.
And you have Scara Damsel of the Doom involved in this, correct?
Yes. Scara is going to be our hostess with the mostest for the night.
Nice.
And she will be one of the people that'll be interviewing the band, which is Rebel Flesh, for the first Fang Bangers Ball segment.
Awesome. God, for once, I honestly wish I could be in Texas, man. You've got some really cool stuff going on down there. No, I'm just teasing. I've got a lot of friends out there, of which I know you have met personally. Good friend Billy Pond.
Oh yeah, Billy.
Big Bill. Just probably a handful. And I know you've been to the Texas gas station.
Oh yeah, they carry the magazine.
I want to be there, so I just yeah, I'm outside. I'm in the state of Maryland, in case you didn't know. So I'm in the tri-state area. I mean, I've got Baltimore, Annapolis, and DC, all with under an hour's time. I've got Philly, I've got Jersey, I've got Virginia, and so forth, which is always great. That way I don't have to drive 10 hours just to get to the next state. Like when I was down in Florida, it was roughly 9 hours for me just to get to Georgia and then crash for the night. Made it feel like you were almost there because you were finally off the state line, but I'm driving all the way up to damn Maryland.
That's Texas too. Like, it's being in Austin or San Antonio, it's like 8 hours just to get anywhere out of the state. It's like, cool, we're out of the state now.
So being a retro man, what is your favorite? Hell, what is your all-time favorite horror movie then, if you can honestly name one?
That's always the best question to ask a horror person, because it's always just like, I can't name just one, which I can't. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street's definitely up there. That's one of the first movies that I ever saw in my life that I remember as a kid, like way too young to be watching Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Hellraiser, definitely up there. Texas Chainsaw, um, Critters, Ghoulies. I like little creature horror. That was like one of my favorite things. Yeah, like all of those movies are amazing. And I can name like 20 more. So stop me now.
So how do you think yesterday's movies compare to modern film?
It's definitely hard for modern film to live up to what was created. A lot of it is like a test of the time. It's like a testament to the time that it happened. Like they didn't have, digital anything to rely on really. It was everything had to be ingenuity. So that made things as amazing as they were because they had to do it practical. There was no other option, which, is the way to go, honestly. Like you sometimes people do practical and then they put like, digital over it. And it's like, you just messed up all that practical. Why did you do that?
Right.
Like leave it just practical. So it's hard for newer stuff. Although with that said, it's not like I'm saying, oh, any new horror is not good. There's a lot of really good new horror. Some stuff that kind of is on the cusp of horror, like some of the stuff I like is like Deathgasm,
Sure.
Turbo Kid, which is kind of like a splatter sci-fi.
And those almost have the feel of they could have been drawn out of, right?
Yeah, and then like I like the reimagining the newer Evil Dead. Like I'm not one of those people that's like remakes are terrible, although a lot of remakes are not good. Like even with like The Crow, I've heard is not very good.
Yeah.
But if it's done with the right mind and the right, paying homage and not, kind of messing up with the formula, you can make a reimagining, you can make a remake without ruining things.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, the horror community, we're a small, very tight knit, very, very opinionated person because don't fuck with our horror movies. And you come back and you remake something. It's like, dude, are you serious? You don't touch this fucking movie ever. Yeah. No one's allowed to remake this certain film ever. And then they do. And no matter how good it is, they'll never admit to it. Ever, ever, ever. I mean, for example, the ongoings of the Halloween films.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have nothing against Michael Myers. I have nothing against John Carpenter. I think John Carpenter is probably my favorite horror filmmaker of all time. Okay. The Fog to me is the scariest movie ever made. But okay, Evil Dies Tonight. Yeah.
So
give it a small rest, let it breathe for a while.
I've said it before, and every time I say it, it was like blasphemy, but like I've never really been a huge Michael Myers fan. I've never been a huge like Halloween fan.
Right.
If you ask me what my favorite Halloween film was in the series, I'm going to say part 3.
I knew you would. I knew that. It's funny too how popular that film has gotten over the years.
Oh yes.
And maybe it's because of all the hatred that Michael Myers is getting, is that part 3 is actually coming up from the grave and resurfacing. I don't know.
I think a lot of people, like even watching it now, there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. It's not like a voiceless stalker killer just like hunting people down and killing them. There's there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when I was a kid, like the whole scene with the kid with the the jack-o'-lantern mask on scared the shit out of me.
Sure.
Like I was just like, holy hell, like bugs coming out of this dude's head. Like, what is going on? Like that scared the shit out of me. So it left a lasting impression, and like all the other things are just like I like my killers with a little more personality.
Sure. I'll give you that.
That's why I like Pinhead more. He's got personality, he says things, he's got the one-liners. And then as far as like, if they're not going to talk, at least like have a chainsaw and slice people up pretty well.
Make it good, damn it.
Make it good. Use a chainsaw.
That's great. Hey, boys and girls, I want to thank Mr. Mitch Rafter for joining us this evening, owner and creator of Gorenoir magazine. He is available definitely on Facebook.
Yes, everything.
Probably on all social medias. Definitely look him up. Don't forget Friday the 13th
Yes.
Kickstarter for
Terrifier.
as well as if you're in the Texas area, don't forget to check out Bang Bangers Ball in Austin.
Yes.
As well. I hope that goes without a hitch and you guys have a great time with that. And I look forward to seeing some pictures afterwards. Boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me on yet another painful episode of the Witching Hour podcast. Please hit the little subscribe button, whichever side it's on. Find me on Roku also. Go to the apps, scroll, record, download. It's all free. Second favorite word with the F letter in it. Well, maybe the third. I don't know. Food's in there somewhere, unfortunately. Mitch, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And best of luck with everything with Gorenoir Magazine.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys again soon. And remember to always keep it evil.